When it comes to avoidant personalities, everything you think you know about winning someone over gets flipped on its head. Most people believe that the harder they chase, the more likely an avoidant will finally commit. They assume that if they send enough texts, show up at the right moments, or convince themselves they're indispensable, the avoidant will eventually fold. But here's the hard truth. Avoidants are wired to resist pressure, to retreat when someone else's emotional energy threatens to engulf them. And the first subtle transformative shift you need to make, the one that changes the dynamic entirely, is not about what you do to them, but about what you do to yourself. It's about stopping the chase and regulating your own nervous system. Think about it. Every time you react to an avoidance withdrawal with anxiety, with panic, with relentless pursuit, you're communicating a silent message. I am incomplete without you, please don't leave. And while that might feel authentic, it actually triggers their deepest fear, losing themselves. Your neediness becomes an invisible leash. They may crave connection, but they will never choose to feel trapped, even subconsciously. The paradox is simple. Freedom, not force, attracts them. Safety, not intensity, keeps them close. So what does it mean to regulate your nervous system? It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be detached. It's about cultivating emotional resilience. It's about understanding that your worth, your completeness, your peace is independent of whether this person calls you back or texts you first. When you can respond calmly, when you can breathe through their absence instead of panicking, something remarkable happens. Your energy shifts. You become a presence that is steady, grounded, and predictable in the best possible way. And avoidants notice. They are always scanning for emotional cues, whether you realize it or not. They are sensitive to tension, to urgency, to any signal that suggests attachment is being used as a tool for control. When you stop chasing, you remove the invisible threat they are constantly monitoring. You no longer force them to choose you out of guilt or fear. Instead, you create an environment where choosing you is not only safe, but also deeply appealing. You show them, without words, without pressure, that love can exist without smothering, that intimacy does not require surrendering one's autonomy. And paradoxically, in this space of calm, your magnetic power rises. The very thing they were avoiding, emotional closeness, becomes accessible because they are no longer cornered by your need. This is also a philosophical shift, not just a psychological one. It's a radical acceptance of reality. You cannot control another person's attachment style. You cannot force someone to feel what you want them to feel. What you can control is your own state of being. By mastering yourself first, you create conditions where the avoidant can safely explore intimacy, where connection is a choice rather than a demand. You are no longer pleading for attention. You are no longer negotiating your worth. You are simply being whole, present, and alive in your own power. And here is the beautiful, almost poetic truth. When you embody this grounded energy, when you stop chasing and start regulating, the avoidance system begins to soften. They may test you, pull away, or disappear momentarily, but your stability becomes the anchor they unconsciously seek. You are no longer an object to be pursued. You are a safe harbor they long to return to. So the shift begins here inside of you. Stop chasing, breathe, center yourself, align your energy with freedom, not desperation. Stop reacting to their distance and start responding from your own strength. Because the moment you regulate your own nervous system, the moment you truly embody presence over panic, you stop being someone they have to escape from. You become someone they choose. And remember this, you are not making them choose you by force. You are giving them the freedom to choose, and in freedom lies desire. One of the most misunderstood dynamics with avoidance is how they perceive emotion. Most people assume that the way to get closer to them is to lay everything out on the table, every fear, every longing, every craving for reassurance. They think transparency equals trust, and on the surface that seems logical. We've been conditioned to believe that honesty, vulnerability, and emotional intensity build intimacy, but with an avoidant, too much transparency, too much urgency actually pushes them further away. They don't resist love, they resist being fully decoded, fully known, fully captured, and this is where the second subtle shift comes in, replacing emotional urgency with emotional mystery. This isn't about playing games. It's not about withholding your feelings to manipulate or confuse. It's about embodying the truth that your life, your emotional world, is rich and layered enough that it cannot be exhausted by constant explanation. You don't need to justify every thought, defend every feeling, or explain why their absence affects you. When you stop over-delivering your emotional self, you create a space where curiosity can grow. And curiosity, not pressure, is what draws an avoidant in. Think about it philosophically for a moment. Humans are naturally drawn to what they cannot fully understand. Mystery triggers exploration. Clarity, especially when offered with desperation, triggers retreat. The avoidant brain perceives emotional flooding as a form of containment. When you are urgent, insistent, or overly available, they interpret it, often unconsciously, as a demand for surrender, and their instinct pull back. Protect the self, reestablish boundaries, preserve autonomy. By contrast, when you hold your emotional world with calm, when you share selectively and let some things remain unspoken, you are no longer a challenge to escape from. You are a puzzle they want to solve. This shift also changes the energy of your interactions. Instead of chasing validation or attention, you bring presence. Instead of seeking reassurance, you offer engagement on your own terms. Conversations become richer, not more frantic. Silence becomes an ally, not a void. In short, your emotional mystery transforms you from someone who demands connection into someone who invites it effortlessly. It's subtle, but it's profound. Avoidants are not wired to reject love. They are wired to resist intensity that feels like entrapment. By replacing urgency with mystery, you remove the pressure that triggers that resistance. And in doing so, you allow them to approach you freely, to choose connection because they want it, not because they feel forced or cornered. Philosophically, it's a lesson in self-containment. Your emotions are yours to hold, not theirs to manage. Your satisfaction, your peace, your inner fulfillment are independent of their choices. When you internalize this truth, you operate from a space of sovereignty. You are emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. You are open without being exhausting. And paradoxically, this very balance, this dance of presence and space, awakens desire in an avoidant that frantic pursuit never will. The real mastery here is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust in their capacity to choose freely. You no longer have to prove your worth or convince them of your feelings. You simply exist with integrity, consistency, and calm intensity. Your emotional life becomes your anchor, and their curiosity becomes the bridge that draws them toward you naturally, organically, and sustainably. So stop over-explaining. Stop laying out every feeling in a bid to secure them. Stop seeking constant validation. Instead, cultivate the kind of emotional depth that is felt, not forced, that intrigues, not overwhelms, that invites, not pressures. Because here's the truth. When you replace emotional urgency with emotional mystery, you don't just change their perception of you, you change the entire dynamic. They no longer feel compelled to escape. They feel compelled to explore. And remember this. Curiosity, freedom, and mystery are the magnets that draw an avoidant heart. You are not manipulating, you are simply aligning yourself with what naturally inspires connection. One of the most subtle and transformative shifts you can make with an avoidant is learning to validate their autonomy rather than threatening it. This is counterintuitive because so often we think that intimacy is about closeness, about shared time, about proving that we belong together. We mistake connection for control, thinking that the more we insist on their attention, the more likely they are to commit. But avoidants are wired to resist anything that feels like a loss of self. Even when they care deeply, the instinct to protect their freedom can override desire, leaving them distant, aloof, or seemingly indifferent. The shift begins with a deep internal recognition. You cannot make someone feel safe by demanding their presence. You cannot create intimacy by eroding their independence. And yet most people unconsciously do the exact opposite. They ask too many questions, monitor too closely, or push for reassurance in ways that, from the avoidance perspective, feel like a trap. The harder you push for certainty, the more they feel the need to reclaim their space. So what does validating their autonomy actually look like? It's simple in principle, but profound in practice. It means expressing respect for their individuality and their choices without judgment or pressure. It means saying, whether verbally or energetically, I see you as a whole person separate from me, and I honor that. It's not about conceding your own needs or settling for less. It's about creating a relational climate where two complete people can coexist, where freedom and love are not mutually exclusive. Here's the paradox. When you validate their autonomy, you actually increase the likelihood that they will choose you. When an avoidant senses that their freedom is threatened, they resist. When they sense that freedom is honored, they relax and lean in. They may still test boundaries or retreat momentarily, but the dynamic shifts from one of fear and avoidance to one of curiosity and engagement. By respecting their space, you remove the invisible pressure that keeps them at arm's length, creating a relational environment where intimacy is not a demand but a choice. Philosophically, this is a lesson in trust, and trust in the other person, yes, but even more importantly, trust in yourself. When you operate from a place of inner stability and self-respect, you no longer feel the need to compel them into showing love. You no longer negotiate your worth based on their availability. You allow them to be fully themselves while remaining fully you. That alignment, of independence with connection, is magnetic. It signals strength, clarity, and emotional maturity, qualities that avoidance, respect, and deep down long for. This shift is also deeply empowering because it changes your internal dialogue. Instead of thinking, I have to make them stay, you think, I honor them and I honor myself. Connection will come naturally or not at all, and either outcome is okay. This mindset removes the desperation that so often sabotages attraction. You become a stable, confident presence in their world rather than an anxious force they feel compelled to evade. Your energy communicates that love is safe, choice-based, and free, and that is exactly what allows an avoidant to finally lean in without fear. So the work here is not about persuasion or strategy, it's about presence. It's about living in alignment with the principle that freedom is the foundation of love. The more you validate their autonomy, the more they can feel safe, understood, and unpressured. And the more they feel safe, the more their natural desire to connect emerges, because they are no longer fighting against your energy. And the lesson extends beyond relationships. When you honor another's freedom, you are practicing a form of radical respect, a principle that deepens connection, trust, and attraction on every level. It's a shift from control to empowerment, from neediness to influence, from attachment to true choice. So start here. Stop trying to own them with attention. Stop framing love as a negotiation, and start embodying the truth that freedom is not the enemy of connection. It is its essential soil. When you do this, the avoidant doesn't feel trapped. They feel invited. And when they feel invited rather than pressured, they finally choose to step closer. One of the most profound shifts you can make with an avoidant is moving from being an option to being the standard. It's subtle, but it transforms the dynamic entirely. Avoidants are not inherently incapable of love, nor are they indifferent to connection. What they resist is the idea that closeness is guaranteed, that intimacy is an entitlement rather than a choice. If they sense that you are endlessly available, that your presence and attention can be summoned at any moment, they unconsciously perceive it as a lack of personal boundaries, and attraction diminishes. The key shift here is clarity, being warm, engaged, and emotionally present while simultaneously holding firm standards for how you allow yourself to be treated. This is not about playing hard to get or manipulating someone into commitment. It's about aligning your energy with self-respect, integrity, and non-negotiable values. It's about understanding your worth so profoundly that you no longer negotiate it for attention or validation. When you embody this, your energy communicates something powerful. I am whole, I am available to love, but I am not available to compromise my essence. And that clarity is magnetic for an avoidant. It signals stability, security, and the absence of neediness. Everything they crave subconsciously but can't always articulate. Think about it from a psychological perspective. Avoidants have a subtle radar for imbalance in emotional energy. When someone appears needy, desperate, or uncertain, it activates their system to withdraw. When someone appears grounded, consistent, and calm, someone who embodies a life full of purpose and meaning independent of them, it activates curiosity, intrigue, and even desire. By becoming the standard, you shift from a reactive state to a proactive one. You are no longer trying to earn their choice. Your energy simply invites it. This shift is also a philosophical lesson in sovereignty. You are the authority of your own life. You define your boundaries, your values, and your standards. You are not negotiating your self-worth for temporary comfort or fleeting validation. When you approach relationships from this place of quiet certainty, you align yourself with what is natural and authentic, rather than what is reactive and conditional. And paradoxically, this alignment is exactly what encourages an avoidant to step closer. They don't commit out of guilt or pressure, they commit out of genuine recognition that they are choosing a person of integrity, stability, and self-respect. It's important to understand that becoming the standard does not mean rejecting warmth or love. You are fully present, fully available, fully engaged, but you are not flexible on the core principles that define you. You are inviting someone into your life on your terms, not negotiating with their whims. That energy is incredibly compelling. It communicates a quiet power, a confidence that is neither aggressive nor fearful. And for an avoidant who fears being consumed or cornered, this is deeply attractive. They sense that they can approach without threat, explore without compulsion, and choose without coercion. The practical essence of this shift is consistency. Warmth without compromise, engagement without desperation, curiosity without overexposure. When you embody these qualities, you change the dynamic from "I hope they choose me" to "they have the choice and I am the prize." This is the language avoidants respond to. Not words, not ultimatums, but the energy of certainty, presence, and unshakable self-worth. And here is the powerful truth. When you operate from this place, you no longer compete for attention or chase validation. You become magnetic in a way that is effortless, subtle, and irresistible. Avoidants do not finally choose someone because they are convinced. They choose someone who embodies the standard and someone whose energy communicates that love is abundant, stable, and never contingent on drama or urgency. So stop being the option, stop negotiating your worth, and start living as the standard. When you do, the avoidant doesn't feel pressured, controlled, or cornered. They feel drawn, they feel safe, they feel compelled to engage because you have become the benchmark of authenticity, clarity, and self-respect. And in that energy, choice transforms from obligation into desire. One of the most understated yet transformative shifts in attracting an avoidant is learning the art of strategic space. This is not about giving the silent treatment. It's not about punishing someone emotionally or playing games. Strategic space is intentional, dignified, and grounded in self-respect. It's about understanding a profound truth. Avoidants process emotion in absence, not in constant proximity. When you are always present, always available, always seeking to fill the gaps, you inadvertently suppress their attachment system. You become a safe harbor too early, and paradoxically, they feel less compelled to lean in. The shift begins with awareness. Notice how your presence, your words, your energy interact with their natural rhythm. Avoidants often need time to reflect, to process, to integrate feelings at their own pace. When you flood that space with calls, messages, or emotional urgency, you override their internal system, triggering retreat instead of connection. Strategic space is the conscious choice to step back without withdrawing love, to allow absence to work its quiet magic. It's not avoidance, it's invitation. Think about it psychologically. Humans respond to gaps in presence. Absence, when combined with consistent boundaries and respect, activates desire and curiosity. An avoidant may initially pull back, but in that silence, they begin to reckon with what your presence means in their life. The very thing they were trying to avoid, the pull of attachment, starts to stir precisely because it's not being forced. Space creates perspective. It reveals value, and value is what ultimately compels choice. Strategic space also cultivates emotional autonomy on your side. It forces you to stop reacting reflexively to their distance. Instead of panicking, obsessing, or seeking reassurance, you center yourself, maintain your life, and operate from calm confidence. This change in your energy is subtle, but it's powerful. Avoidance can sense it immediately. Your calm presence communicates without words that your fulfillment does not hinge on their choices. It signals that you are grounded, self-contained, and not a threat to their freedom. And when someone no longer perceives you as a source of pressure, they can move toward you willingly. Philosophically, this shift is a lesson in trust in yourself and trust in the process. You must believe that stepping back does not mean losing them, that allowing space does not equate to surrender. It is the embodiment of patience, clarity, and dignity. You trust that the connection will either strengthen organically or reveal its true nature without manipulation or force. This is a principle that applies beyond relationships. It teaches you to honor timing, respect boundaries, and embrace the natural flow of life rather than trying to bend it to your immediate desires. The practical essence of strategic space is subtle but intentional. You maintain engagement, warmth, and connection, but you stop filling every silence. You stop initiating every interaction. You allow the avoidant to encounter the natural gaps that ignite curiosity, reflection, and longing. You resist the temptation to over-explain, over-communicate, or over-commit. In doing so, you create a magnetic tension, a push and pull that draws them in without coercion. Here's the transformative truth. Avoidants don't move toward people who overextend themselves. They move toward people who are whole, stable, and measured in their approach. Strategic space communicates that you are not needy, not frantic, not dependent. You are complete, you are present, and in that presence within absence, they feel compelled to return, to engage, to explore, and ultimately to choose. So the shift is clear. Stop filling every void. Step back with dignity. Let your presence breathe and your life flourish independently. Because in that space, the avoidant doesn't feel trapped, pressured, or manipulated. They feel drawn, inspired, and naturally inclined to return to what they sense is authentic, balanced, and enduring. And remember this, absence when wielded wisely and lovingly is not loss. It is the invitation that awakens desire. The final and perhaps most profound shift is the one that changes everything, moving from "prove you love me" to "I am already whole." This is not just a technique or a strategy, it's a transformation of identity, a deep internal alignment that radiates outward. Avoidants are wired to resist emotional dependency. The more they sense that your self-worth hinges on their choices, the more their instinct is to pull away. The more you need them to prove themselves, to validate your feelings, to fill gaps in your emotional life, the more trapped they feel, and the less likely they are to choose connection willingly. The shift begins with a recognition of your own completeness. You are not seeking someone to validate your existence or confirm your value. You are already whole. You already have purpose, clarity, and emotional stability. When you operate from this place, everything about your presence changes. You no longer ask them to meet you in fear or need. You engage from curiosity, warmth, and confidence. Love is no longer a survival mechanism. It becomes a conscious, empowering choice. Philosophically, this is the essence of attraction and authentic connection. People are drawn to wholeness, not emptiness. They are inspired by those who have integrated their own power, purpose, and peace, rather than those who are negotiating it through relationships. When you embody this, an avoidant does not feel compelled to withdraw. Instead, they feel the magnetic pull of choice. They sense that being with you is not a matter of obligation, guilt, or fear, but of desire, alignment, and mutual resonance. This shift also dissolves one of the most common traps in avoidant dynamics, the desperate need for reassurance. When you rely on someone else to tell you they care, you are signaling incompleteness, and avoidants are neurologically sensitive to that pressure. But when you stand grounded in your own self-worth, that pressure evaporates. Your presence becomes calm, stable, and inviting. You are no longer chasing. You are becoming magnetic. You are no longer reacting. You are responding from a place of strength and clarity. Think about it practically. Every interaction, every message, every conversation carries the energy of wholeness. You engage fully, yet you are not attached to outcomes. You are open, yet you are firm in your standards. You are loving, yet you are independent. Avoidants who instinctively fear being consumed or controlled feel safe in that energy. For the first time, love is not a trap, like it is an invitation. And when someone feels free, safe, and inspired simultaneously, they step in willingly. They choose connection not because they are forced, but because they want to. There's also a deeper philosophical lesson here about life itself. Wholeness is not merely a tool for relationships, it is the foundation for all meaningful connection. When you operate from completion rather than deficiency, your energy transforms every dynamic around you. You no longer need to negotiate your presence, defend your worth, or beg for validation. You simply exist as a force of grounded magnetic integrity. And in that energy, avoidance and people in general states are naturally drawn to engage, to connect, and to choose. So the final shift is about embodying a state of self-sufficiency without detachment, of presence without desperation, of love without dependence. It is about living in the truth that you are complete, that your fulfillment is internal, and that every relationship you enter is an addition, not a necessity. When you operate from this alignment, the avoidant dynamic changes entirely. They no longer feel threatened. They no longer feel controlled. They feel invited. And here's the lasting truth to carry with you. When you stand whole, grounded, and self-contained, love becomes a choice, not a survival strategy. The avoidant does not finally choose you because you chased, pressured, or proved yourself. They choose you because you embody a presence so compelling, so safe, and so fully alive that connection becomes irresistible. So now you have it. The 6 subtle shifts that change everything with an avoidant: regulating your nervous system, replacing urgency with mystery, validating autonomy, becoming the standard, mastering strategic space, and embodying wholeness. Each shift is not a tactic, not a game, not a manipulation. Each shift is a reflection of your own power, your own presence, and your own emotional mastery. When you align yourself this way, you stop chasing, you stop pleading, and you stop trying to earn love from someone else. Instead, you become magnetic, grounded, and irresistible. Not because of what you do to them, but because of who you are. Think about it deeply. Love is never about forcing someone to choose you. Love is about creating a reality where choosing you feels natural, safe, and irresistible. When you step into your own power, when you honor yourself and the other person simultaneously, when you embody freedom, presence, and wholeness, something almost magical happens. The avoidant doesn't feel trapped. They don't feel pressured. They feel drawn. And in that drawing, that voluntary choice, true connection is born. This is not just about relationships. It is a principle for life. The energy you bring, the alignment you hold, and the completeness you cultivate will always dictate the quality of what you attract. When you operate from need, you repel. When you operate from wholeness, clarity, and freedom, you magnetize. You invite, you inspire, and you transform. So carry this truth with you. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it fully. You are not here to chase what is already yours by birthright. Your peace, your purpose, your power. You are here to create an environment where love is a choice, not a demand, where connection is a reflection of alignment, not desperation. Step into that energy, regulate your mind, balance your heart, respect autonomy, hold your standards, allow space, and embrace wholeness. Stand fully in yourself and watch as the world and the avoidant in your life responds not because of pressure, not because of pleading, but because of the undeniable magnetic force of your presence. And remember this, when you are whole, when you are grounded, and when you are free, love doesn't have to be chased. It chooses you.